right, I'd like to welcome everyone and call to order the Fridley School Board business meeting for Tuesday, December 20th. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. All rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda for the December 20th meeting?
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion by Lindblad, seconded by Sampson to approve the agenda for December 20th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Move on to our next item is a welcoming. We welcome Carol Thornton to the Fridley School Board. This is her first meeting.
Yes.
Give you a little bit of background on Carol, unless she wants to take over herself, but.
Great job. Your voice a little bit better than mine tonight.
Well, Carol is the mother of a third grade student at Stevenson Elementary, Dahlia.
Dalia.
Dalia,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
She would get me if I
She
didn't
would get,
correct.
oh, well,
If I didn't
I have a
correct you.
daughter the exact same way who has to correct everyone on her
Yes,
name too, so.
yes.
And I apologize to Dalia. She has participated and volunteered many activities at Stevenson for her dollars for the past 3 years, including chaperoning field trips, supporting the box top score there, annual school carnival, that can take a lot of work, the book swap program, as well as she volunteers in the classroom helping the students with their reading, math, and any other academic assignments as requested or needed. Carol is a mental health case manager at POR Emotional Wellness, with her primary focusing working on children and families and connecting them with the community and other resources to help support their mental, emotional wellness, and behavior and social skills groups, which we seem to be talking about quite a bit this evening.
Yes.
Carol has a Bachelor of Science degree from Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi, as well as a Bachelor and Master's degrees in Occupational Therapy from St. Catherine University in St. Paul, otherwise known as St. Kate's. I don't know, anybody knows it as St. Catherine's.
Right.
So you've lived here for the past 14 years, and we welcome you to the board.
Thank you. Welcome to be here.
Next up will be our Employee of the Month.
Our employee of the month for December is Laura Hengen. It is a privilege to work with Laura Hengen, says Cindy Richmond, who is the building principal secretary, and Laura is the receptionist at Stevenson Elementary. Cindy says that she has such great admiration and utmost respect for her. She puts her whole heart and soul in working in her role as our school receptionist. She's very hardworking, takes her job seriously, but yet is still able to put fun into her job. I consider a blessing to work with such a wonderful person. Laura is willing to do whatever it takes, as well as being flexible to get the job done. She has vibrant, caring personality that lights up the room when she enters. Parents, students, and staff love talking with her. She has wonderful qualities such as being caring, hardworking, and very genuine. She is also going beyond the call of duty, whether it is volunteering for family bingo night or annual carnival night, or helping me dig into the dirt to make our school look its best at all times. I believe that Laura deserves this district-wide recognition for her dedication, hard work, integrity, and team player that she strives to be. So congratulations for December's Employee of the Month, Laura Hengen.
Well, thank you. Next up, we have a couple of Teachers of Excellence from TIES.
Yeah, these two teachers, you might remember, were recognized as Fridley's two Teachers of the Year, and they are Sarah Armstrong and Anthony Hansen, and they've been here a couple of times to talk about integrating technology. They've piloted new ways in delivering instruction using emerging tools. This year, we chose both of them from Hayes Elementary, and Sarah is the kindergarten teacher. She is a member of the newly formed Fridley Instructional Technology Team, and that is known as the FIT team. And she supports students and staff with instructional technologies, as does Anthony. And Anthony, as you might remember, is a second grade teacher. So congratulations to both Anthony and Sarah in being the TIES Teacher of Excellence for 2016-17 for Fridley.
All right, congratulations. Next, we move on to superintendent staff reports, beginning with the facilities and technology update. I think this is a tag team between Yvonne and Matthew.
So your packet, you're going to have to watch the screen tonight. It will be on, in the board book tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, so Yvonne and I are here tonight to give an update on our referendum projects that have been taking place over the last summer and into this school year as we get ready for phase 2. So phase 1 is close and nearing completion. We're working through those pieces, and we're going to give you a little update on where things are at and what's going to happen next. So my name is Matthew Hammer. I'm the Director of Finance for Fridley Public Schools, and I've got Yvonne with me, Yvonne Anderson, who's our Technology Manager, and has done a great job on working through these projects as we've rolled through the last year and a half. I have it.
You have the control.
So facility planning. Back November of 2015, the community of Fridley School District passed a referendum that allowed the district to obtain $27.5 million to fund projects around the district. And the guiding principles that revolved around our planning for that process was to make sure we created a safe and secure environment for our students and staff, protect our community's infrastructure and buildings, making sure that exterior envelope is maintained and is protected, so our facilities stay up to date inside and can thrive, and continuing to meet the ever-changing needs of our students, staff, and community. Again, $27.5 million. The main target area is safety and security, fire suppression, updating technology, completing those major deferred maintenance projects to get us up to date as we can, renovation projects, and addressing space issues at our elementary buildings. Okay. Safety and security, and Yvonne will get into some of this as well, but we covered a lot of areas in that regard. It included cameras, it included cross-door doors, it included updating entries, lots of pieces that are getting updated, and we continue to update. The district-wide security systems from the camera perspective have been updated around the district, except with the exception of the middle school, which will come this next summer. And as we looked at all the buildings that were under construction this summer, we updated entries and security, secure cross-corridor doors around the district. Fire suppression. The state fire marshal, when we had our latest review, required the district to update its fire suppression systems. So fire suppression systems are being updated. They were updated at the high school this last summer. We pulled water to the middle school in preparation for this next summer. So those are the two buildings in the district that weren't up to date from a fire suppression perspective, and those are getting updated as part of the project. Around the district, deferred maintenance, we had a lot of different things going on. We've had roof replacements, fascia updates, gym floors, windows, all those items that were in dire need of deferred maintenance and repair. When we look at those items, we've completed at the high school about 12 to 15 sections of roof are getting done over the course of this project. We're updating HVAC. Kitchens, and when you look at these plans, you can kind of, or look at this image, you can kind of see the updates to the roofs. Those lighter sections of roof are our updates, and when you look at this section. Windows around the high school were all updated. We've updated the windows, and they all are fixed, and they're helping us with our HVAC controls around the district that were updated as well. When we look at our HVAC systems, we were running 3 systems in the district for heating and cooling. We've condensed that into one system. We've gotten rid of our pneumatics and our steam, and those have been combined and brought on to our Medisys system that controls our heating and ventilation district-wide. We also, as part of this process, added a chiller, which basically was able to update our HVAC on the north side of our high school in our auditorium and gymnasium areas. Here's another major project that had some major updates. The kitchen was completely gutted as of July, and now we have an updated kitchen facility that really has transformed the high school cafeteria area, really turned it into a more of a college feel from a cafeteria perspective. It's very cool and cool to see.
The food is much better this year, we hear.
That's what we hear. The food's a lot better.
It's all about presentation.
Yeah. So on the gymnasium side, our gym floor was original in the high school, and it was updated this past summer. The image on the left was the old gym floor, and the image on the right is our new gym floor and bleachers. Quite the update, very spectacular. The kids have had a huge response when they came in this last fall to that new gym floor. Here's another major project that just finished up. We had our auditorium seats were put in the week after Thanksgiving. First performance was done the first week of December, so got it done in the nick of time, but it's quite the update. Lots of updates district-wide to make this accessible for all. ADA compliance. We have an elevator in there that allows access to the stage as well as the lower level. A lot of great updates in that auditorium, and everybody's got to come out and check it out. At both elementaries, we added 5 additional classrooms to address space issues we had at those sites. Those are full already. We knew that going in at full capacity. Great space for both those elementary buildings to provide programming. These are images of our new additions. They're mirrors from our, all along when we started this, we had phase 2 in mind. So both elementaries, we were able to complete phase 2 this last summer and add those additional classrooms. There's Hayes. So at the middle school, as part of prep for phase 2, we did bring a water main installation into the middle school. So we're prepped for that fire suppression that's going to go into the middle school next summer. We also, just as an update, we issued bids on the middle school this last December, and we have bids for approval tonight, and those came in at budget, and we're looking forward to phase 2 as we start the summer projects for next year. I'm going to skip ahead and let Yvonne get rolling here.
All right.
So Yvonne's going to take this over from a technology perspective.
And I have notes.
That's good.
A little bit. Anyway, good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for having us. Again, I'm Yvonne Anderson. I'm the technology manager for Fridley Public Schools, and just wanted to note about the planning and all the configuration and installation that we've done. We feel like we have a future-proof technology infrastructure that poises our staff and students for the years to come. So we're really excited about having that opportunity to be able to do this for our district. Sorry. So this is a quick, just a preview, so we can get back to this at the end, but it's quite a long list of other things that we did over the summer, so with technology-related items. And these were at Hayes, Stevenson, the high school, and the FCC. And of course, the middle school will be happening probably within the next month or so. We'll be starting technology updates at the middle school. So one of the things that we did update was our surveillance system. So we had older cameras, analog cameras, and now we have a new system where we have all of our cameras are part of our data network, and so they're all IP cameras connected. The new system we feel allows a safe and secure environment for our students. It's easily accessible. We have a software program that is installed on the principals and some administrator computers, plus our police liaisons have access to the system. And they also have access through a web interface, so they can access it either way. And it gives them quick information to take a look and see what's happening at their buildings. So this would be an example of what, over at Hayes, it's the hallways. So our principal there can go and say, I want to look at my hallways, and he can get a quick bird's eye view into what's happening in his building right away.
Are the
pictures are really clear, much more clear.
Yeah, it's much better than it used to be with the analog cameras, so the visual is much better. I know I was actually working on the slides and stopped in and saw Kelly, our principal at our assistant principal at the high school, and mentioned it would be great to have a little blurb from him about it. And you see his blurb at the bottom. It's kind of a long blurb because he was very excited about it, and it really has changed the way they operate. The kids know about the cameras, and so it's kind of a deterrent. Plus, it just gives them that access, and it gives that safe feeling in the building also.
Are the cameras in all the classrooms or just the hallways?
Not
or
in the
where?
classrooms. We have them throughout the hallways. We have them, in the cafeteria. We wouldn't have them in the bathrooms, places like that, but we have them, if we have an area where maybe facing a door, so that we have that recognition if we needed to take a look at some issue. And so it's really nice. They can go to that camera, they can see what kind of video they can access, if they need like 5-minute video, and they can pull that in, and they can, if they need to confront a student or if there was some kind of issue happening. Or again, on the outside of the building, so it prevents theft.
Okay.
Things that we don't want to, we want to deter that stuff happening to our buildings. So.
Okay. Who can access that, the cameras, and it can see that? Like, can parents, if there's an incident in the schools,
That would
can
be
parents-
something because of privacy.
Right,
We
I
want to
was
make
thinking
sure that it's
privacy.
a communication between the principal, the student, and the parent, but it's not something that they would allow the video to go outside of the district.
Yeah, the data privacy
Yeah,
would,
Yeah.
is pretty strong there. So, and we were just talking that these are also on the outside of the buildings as well for perimeter use. And, that's important, especially in areas that might not be as light. And so there's good access for safety for everyone.
So I think Matthew showed you this picture last June, or this past June, and it was a big deal. I mean, we had massive amounts of cabling that was pulled out of the buildings and replaced, and a lot of that was the cameras, it was the data network, and it was our speaker system. So a few different things going on, but kind of amazing to see. So this is what one of our closets look like, and not everybody gets excited about a closet, but I do. It's like, well, we have the nice cable management now, we have our patch panels, we have our switches, and we have everything labeled and marked, and so we can go back, and so if we know that there's something happening in a classroom, we can go to that jack in the classroom and can say, okay, that's D1. We can go to the closet and we can say, okay, D1 is connected to D5, and then D5 is on C2 or something like that. So we can narrow it down and quickly take care of issues. But the great thing is, since we've done this update, we have not had any network issues. So we feel like all of the skeletons are out of the closet. So really happy about that.
So students can't use the Wi-Fi is really poor at the school, and that's why I can't get my work done there. That excuse
No, that's not an excuse
no longer
anymore,
flies.
actually.
Okay,
No,
Log is
no.
gone.
good for
No.
parents to know.
We feel like we've
Right.
entered the 21st century now, and so that's not an excuse. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is actually, speaking of Wi-Fi, this is a graph that shows on any given day, this is like December 12th will be the beginning of the week, we have up to 2,500 devices connected to our network during the day. So it usually gets pretty heavy about 8 o'clock when school starts, and then drops 3 o'clock when high school and middle school students leave the district. But and that would include district devices and personal devices. So we have a combination of devices being on our network. So we feel like we really are supporting, again, the 21st century learning in the classroom. We have students with devices that are accessing a lot of cloud-based applications now. We have Google Classroom, we have WeVideo. Just last week we did coding class. So everything now has basically gone, to the internet. So supporting that is really important to us. So, we very rarely install a software program on a computer anymore. Everything is in the cloud or in the Google Classroom. So this was a nice picture of actually a classroom where we had, in one corner, we had students doing individualized learning. And then in the middle, we have students that are collaborating. And then on the other side of the classroom, we have the student working with the student and the teacher working one-on-one. So that's the kind of learning that is taking place now, is just different types of learning and all in one classroom. So another thing that we updated was our Bogan sound system at the high school. That one was outdated, and so we updated that. We updated the speakers at the high school, Hayes and Stevenson. So a lot of this is important for informational announcements, plus if there is an emergency or something at the building, the principals have access to that, plus we have access to that by going to a phone, and if we need to do an all call, we can make an announcement. So we really want to make sure that we had that information or that piece of it in the classroom as part of the infrastructure. The other thing that we're working on adding is a digital signage system. And so where you saw the cafeteria, we'll have some LCD panels with the lunch menu information out there. So we're working on getting that updated or installed. And then we'll also have those throughout the building where there's activity information and also any other informational type things that are happening in the building. So that'll start at the high school, and then we'll be installing at the middle school and probably eventually at the elementaries also. And then that also ties into our public access channel 14. So where we broadcast our videos and information, board meetings, things like that. So back to this slide. So if you have any questions about this, kind of gives you some stats, I guess you could say, on what's happening, what we did. As far as cameras, we went from I think it's 68 cameras to 82 cameras at the high school. So for the video piece that we talked about, surveillance. From at the elementaries, it was kind of very sparse, 22 cameras to 41 cameras. So that's kind of another example of the change that we have. The other thing that we did was we doubled the amount of strobes that we have. So if there was an emergency in a lockdown situation, we have blue strobes at every building by every entrance so that people would, either if they're walking up to the building or something coming out, you would know that there's something going on. So you have that visual. So that's another thing that we did for security. In the auditorium, there's a whole list of different things that we did, and hopefully you'll get to visit it. It's just an amazing place now. We have a new projector, a new sound system. So there's quite a few things, and we're kind of in the learning process now and making sure that everything's working and keep it up. But we do feel like all the updates that we have a wonderful, safe, secure environment for 21st century learning for our students.
I have a quick question. So in terms of the infrastructure, is our technology infrastructure on premise, or is it, do we do hosted?
Everything's on premise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we have things that are in the cloud, as far as like Google Classroom, things like that. But we have our data network is internal. So we have the fiber. So our district has fiber connectivity. Ties is our internet service provider, so we have to go out to Ties to get our internet. But everything else is internal.
And so in terms of servers, is there a schedule that is for replacing some of the servers and that type of infrastructure as well?
Yeah, the servers that we have now, we have virtual servers. So we have two pieces of hardware servers that host all the virtual servers. So we have about 20 virtual servers. So we'll probably be looking at replacing those within a year or two.
Okay, thank you.
And for devices, Yvonne's done a really good job of maximizing our dollars by using leases for purchases.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we started leasing about in 2014, June of 2014. And so we'll probably be, one of our first leases will be up. So we'll have to either renew it or something this summer. So we've got between a 3 and 4 year replacement schedule for all of our leases.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you much.
Thank you.
Questions? No more questions?
Thank you.
Thank
No,
you.
thank you.
thanks.
Okay, our next report will be on the taxes payable in 2017. Mr. Hammer.
I'll wait for it.
With bated breath, everybody's just excited about their taxes for next year. Right?
So as this loads, we had a hearing earlier this evening for the Truth in Taxation. It was held at 7 o'clock that went through some of this information. So we're going to talk about our pay 2017 taxes and just go through some of the key components that were discussed at the hearing. So state funding of schools, a little bit of information on our district budget, where we stand, and then talk about our proposed levy.
Woohoo, woohoo.
Good stuff. This makes me feel better.
Yay.
So just a little background on school budgets. They're basically consistently divided across the state of Minnesota into about 8 funds. General fund making up the major component, or about 80% of funding rolls through that for the public schools. But some other non-major funds: food service, community service, building construction, which building construction's a little bit more major for us right now with the referendum going on. Our debt service fund, internal service funds, and then our OPEB accounts, or OPEB funds. This is a snapshot of our fiscal 2015-16 ending by fund, as well as our adopted budgets as we rolled into the year. This is broken out by general restricted, which is our restricted fund balance codes, our general other, food service accounts, community service, so on and so forth. Total of all funds accounted for about $55 million worth of actual expenditures in FY 15-16, with $98 million worth of revenue, which most of that revenue is rolling through Fund 6 as we ramped up for our building construction over the next 3 years. So the general fund makes up most of our revenue. This is our 16-17 adopted budget, which the general fund made up about 80% of all revenue coming through the district, with food service and community service being the other 2 major players in that. The building construction fund has $465,000 of anticipated revenue. That's our capital projects money that we receive annually through our lease levy. But you'll see that we are anticipating larger expenditures there in the capital projects fund as we start phasing in the projects. Looking at the general fund revenue, this is a makeup of how Fridley Public Schools and the sources of revenue. So the state aid makes up about 84% of all revenue received by the Fridley School District, with federal revenue making up a small percentage, 3.2%. And then what we're talking about tonight, the levy, making up just shy of 11% of revenues that the school district receives. Albeit that is an important percentage for operations and facilities.
Matt,
Yes.
can I ask what is involved in the local and other category? It's only
Those would be fees for activities, interest earnings, MA billing that we receive through the state of Minnesota.
Thank you.
General fund expenditures, this is kind of a benchmark slide for us. An important piece of this is if you start adding up not this one. This is talking about the makeup of our expenditures. 70% of our expenditures, 75% of our expenditures here are made up of staffing and benefits. That's a large portion of our general fund budget, with purchase services, supplies, and materials making up smaller percentages of the budget. This is the slide that's our benchmark slide. So if you start moving from pupil support services to the right, going over to regular instruction, down around the graph, 80% of our funding goes for direct student instruction or direct student support. Pupil support services, that's your transportation, instructional support services, special ed, regular instruction, vocational. 80% of our funding is directly going to students, with facilities, administration, support services, and other making up the other 20%. So a little bit of background on property taxes. As you see your property tax bills, it's made up of multiple tax components, taxing jurisdictions. The school district's a percentage of that. You'll see the county and the city and other special jurisdictions or special districts making up the other percentages. This is an example of a tax statement that you're going to see. As you can see, this isn't your Anoka County statement, but it's a similar makeup of what that would look like. In the third column there is where your Fridley taxes, school district taxes would reside. So a little bit of overview on the tax levy. The tax levy is up for pay 17 is up 6.6%. That's less than what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years. We're up 602,000 on the overall levy. Greater percentage of that increase is being seen in the general education levy, with decreases offsetting those in debt services, community services, and our OPEB accounts. This gives you an overall picture. That's 6.6% down in the right-hand corner. As you can see, our general ed levy is up, but our community service levy, debt service levies are showing decreases as we go into the year. Now, this 6.6% is largely made up of 2 percentage points of that increase, or a little bit more than that, are made up of enrollment increases in the district, as well as prior period adjustments that are going to go through. About $115,000 as of a prior year period adjustment from our Pay 16 levy as a result of the referendum that was passed last year and some adjustments that were made in per pupil funding. As we go through the explanation of levy changes, as we look at this voter-approved referendum change, this is largely made up of what I was talking about there with that prior period adjustment and levy increases in regards to per pupil funding and the increases in enrollment that the district's seen over the last year. Okay, here's a big component, but this component's an increase of $775,000, but that's this is a new facility program that used to be health and safety and deferred maintenance, makes up a big chunk of this. So those programs have been rolled into that. The state of Minnesota enacted the long-term facilities maintenance program a few years ago, and it's rolling into our levy cycles, going into full implementation this pay cycle. So the health and safety levy and the deferred maintenance levy that used to be separate line items are now rolled into this LTFM program. Our funding has increased, which this is going to pay for our deferred maintenance and other programs. The biggest 25 school districts in the state had access to this program for years and years and years and years. The biggest 25. The state of Minnesota 2 cycles ago during the 15 legislative session made it accessible for all districts at a capped level, which is going to be phased in over the next couple of years. On the adjustment side, we're seeing a prior period adjustment on the health and safety side for some general fund adjustments. That piece is a pickup from some health and safety projects that we had happen in 2015-16. At $145,000. It's a pickup for some of the fire suppression projects in lead up to that we had coming in 2015-16. On the debt side of the world, districts are required to levy 105% of debt service. So what we're seeing here is we did a refunding in last fiscal year and during January of last fiscal year, where the district refunded some alternative facility bonds that we passed for the JCI project. That's giving us a tax savings over the next 19 years of about $2.3 million, which is coming back through our debt service fund. And because of that, the district is required to levy 105%, but we're seeing decrease in our debt service, so we're going to see a decrease in our debt service levy for this year. Our debt service levy went down about $480,000 in total. $158,000 of it's related to this debt excess. And here is the other piece of it, the reduction in our alternative facilities of approximately $5,000 in savings, but the state is also picking up the other portion, the difference between the $371,000 and $255,000 is equalization aid. So as part of the long-term facilities maintenance program, the state is kicking in a greater percentage for those low property tax wealth districts, and we're seeing that come through here on the long-term maintenance debt. So with all things, I've got some graphs that kind of show tax impacts on some different properties. All these examples are based on the 19.9% increase in property values since 2014. So property values on average in our district have went up 19.9% over this time. These estimates were prepared by Ellers, who's our financial advisor. And they're a pretty good picture of where taxes are going to be based on what your market value is. So the important piece on this graph is to take a look, if you go to the right, on what tax impacts are on an average home. So if you go to that the second column down on residential homestead, $150,000 home is looking at about a $49 increase for changes in taxes from 2016 to 2017. $100,000 home is about a $39 increase, and that's over an entire 12-month period. So for all of 2017. Other pieces to look at there are apartments and commercial properties. So this is kind of a picture of where things have went with accounting for the cumulative change in property tax values over the last from 14 to 17. Taxes are, as that home values increase, their taxes have increased, and kind of gives you a picture of where taxes have went. So there's many factors that attribute to changes in property taxes, property tax growth, obviously, from a market value perspective. Total value of all properties in the district affect property taxes, but then also what other local jurisdictions are doing in taxes have an effect on your overall tax bill. So are there any questions in regards to taxes?
So if you weren't able to make it to the 7 o'clock public hearing, this was a synopsis of everything that would have been talked about during that time. And so if there are if individuals have specific questions about their tax bill or whatever, to talk to Matthew Hammer directly, and he'd be able to hopefully answer all those questions. And then I'm assuming stuff will be on the website
Stuff will be on the website tomorrow.
morning.
Perfect. Great. Good job.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. And with that, we move on to our business action items. And the first item is a motion to certify the tax levy that was just laid out. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion by Sampson, seconded by Pruitt to approve the school levy of $9,707,469.54 for 2016 payable 2017 taxes. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Next up, we have a resolution approving a property tax abatement for parking lot construction projects. Mr. Hammer.
So there was a public hearing held at 7:15 this evening that discussed our abatement bond projects that will be upcoming, and this resolution is to approve the sale of bonds for those projects.
Move the resolution?
Second.
We have a motion by Sampson, seconded by Lindblad, to approve the property tax abatement for parking lot construction projects. Now, these are actually for, at all of the buildings, over the next 2 years, kind of like we're doing the current projects.
Yep.
And it's really allowing for better access for student drop-offs, more safety for those student and parents dropping off their children, as well as the school bus, loading and unloading, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Right. Any further discussion? If not, as it's a resolution, clerk, please call the roll.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and the resolution passes. Our next resolution is regarding the sale of general obligation school building bonds, Series 2017A.
Yeah, so this resolution is related to the abatement bond resolution, and basically is authorizing the school district to participate in the credit enhancement program with the state. So it's a direct correlation to the prior resolution.
Move the resolution?
Second.
We have a motion by Sampson, seconded by Lindblad, to approve the resolution providing for the sale of general obligation school building bonds, Series 2017A. Any further discussion? As this is a resolution, could you please call the roll?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and the resolution passes. Next up, we have a motion to accept the Fridley Middle School project bid. Mr. Hammer, you alluded to it earlier, now here's the full.
Yeah, so the school district accepted bids for the middle school project for phase 2 of our referendum projects. Bids were accepted on December 13th. We had 5 bidders submit bids for the projects, and Morcon Construction was the low bidder on the project at $5,524,000 on their base bid. And then with the alternates, they were still the low bidder, and we accepted, we're recommending the acceptance of alternate 9 cooking equipment, alternate 10 cooking or food service equipment, and alternate 14 rooftop units. The total base bid and acceptance at alternates will equate to $5,785,000.
And this was still within the budget that we
This
had
was still
originally
within
planned
the
on.
budget as we move forward.
I do have a motion to approve and accept the budget project bids.
I move to accept the budget project bids.
Second.
We have a motion by Delville, seconded by Pruitt, to accept the Fridley Middle School project bid. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Our next up is the motion to accept the Fridley High School registration handbook.
In your packet is a copy of the 2017-18 high school registration handbook. The handbook is presented to you with a few minor changes and updates to reflect some information. New high school principals information is in there, authorization of the career program, and changes in a couple of course offerings. I would ask for your approval.
Do I have a motion to approve the registration handbook for the high school?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Sampson, seconded by Pruitt, to approve the Fridley High School registration handbook for 2017-2018. Any, we've got a question?
No, I just have a comment that I want to thank everybody for the work that was put into this. It's quite a document, and there's just so much good information about the courses and, other information that's relevant. So it's quite an accomplishment to get something like this published. So thanks to everyone who contributed to the document.
Yeah, I think the high school staff has done a very nice job of trying to create a very comprehensive document.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is a resolution accepting gifts. This month, as always, we are proud to accept the gifts of our public that has given to the various locations within it. The following persons have donated to Hayes Elementary School: Nancy Anderson, Margene Swanson, Campaign of Cheer, The Jams at the Fridley Senior Center, and St. Philip's Lutheran Church all donated winter coats, snow pants, boots, hats, mittens, sweatpants, and jeans. The Fridley United Methodist Women donated $375 in gift cards. Michael Paquette for $70, Michael Peterson for $14, Deanna Roth for $105, and an anonymous donor for $67.34. Donating this month to Stevenson Elementary School, Marisa Litterman and her employer Cargill donated $300.14, and the Fridley Lions Club donated $1,800 for the special ed department. At the middle school, Scott O'Leary donated $13.40, Stephanie Sharp $35, and an anonymous donors for the total of $43.05. Do I have a motion to accept the gifts and thank the donors for their contribution?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Devo, seconded by Pruitt to accept the gifts and thank the donors for their contributions. Any further discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And the resolution passes. In our resolution-heavy agenda here tonight, our next resolution is a joint powers agreement for the North Suburban Post-Secondary Success Consortium.
Yes, we have in the past had very good working relationships with our neighbors to the east and south a little bit with Spring Lake Park, Mounds View, Roseville, and Columbia Heights. We've already been in partnerships with them with some other post-secondary options through Anoka Hennepin Tech. But now we are formalizing this in a joint powers agreement that allows us to do more work, probably more in the areas of professional development, staff development, and working on curriculum and instruction. And so all of the school boards will be voting, and then, in the November, December meeting about becoming members of this loosely coupled organization. There is no money that will change hands unless we decide to put in for funding and partnership monies that we would normally spend anyway. So I would encourage you to accept this resolution and we move forward with the partnerships.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the joint powers agreement for the North Suburban Post-Secondary Success Consortium?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Sampson and a second by Pruitt to approve the joint powers agreement for the North Suburban Post-Secondary Success Consortium. Try to say that 5 times fast. Any further discussion? Not? Clerk, please call the roll.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And the resolution passes. And our final, or not our final motion, but our last motion in this section is a second reading and adoption of several policies. I think we'll have several different presenters on these policies, or are we all combining them into one?
Oh, no, Laura gets to do hers. I'm here on the harassment and violence policy 413, and then the student sex non-discrimination policy 522. There wasn't any changes from the first reading, and the changes that were included, as addressed last time, were the name updates so that the correct contact information is in the policies.
Thank you. Next up, I believe, Laura with service animals in the schools.
Thank you. This is a second reading of the service animal policies in the schools, and there were no changes from last time.
The last 2 policies are 901 and 902, both community education and the use of our district facilities. And both Tony Kraft, our Director of Community Education, and our facility manager, Stephen Keeler, has updated them with the practices that we currently have in place.
I move we adopt or accept the second reading and adoption of these policies.
Second.
We have a motion by Sampson, seconded by Lindblad, to accept the second reading and the adoption of policies 413, harassment and violence, 522, student sex non-discrimination, 535, service animal in the schools, 901, community education, and 902, use of school district facilities. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Next up is our consent agenda. It's the routine action items that we have, the minutes of the school board meeting that was held November 15th, the monthly financial reports, new contracts, amendments, leave of absence, termination, resignation, retirements, and a memorandum of understanding with the paraprofessionals surrounding the break issue. One note on the retirements section of this, and if I can find the right page in my book.
157.
157, thank you. We have a long-standing, since 1992, Robert Kerrigan has been with us, and he will be retiring effective June 9th. So we certainly, thank him for all his years of service and hope he enjoys his retirement. That, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion by Lindblad, seconded by Delvo, to approve the consent agenda as previously mentioned. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes. Next up, we have written items, starting with student enrollment.
In your packet are the December 1 numbers. These are very important, especially for our world of special education, as this gives us our December 1 counts. You'll see some discrepancies from November 1, and we had some conversations internally about exactly where some courses were aligned to, but we, I think, have worked those out. You will also see that we have 12 students that have post-secondary options in 11th grade and 11 in 12th grade. And we've figured out a way to kind of move those up and be able to see those earlier in the year, so that we know where they are. Most of those students are full PSEO students. We have, only a handful that come back and forth, albeit, we have several that participate in activities, but do the PSEO on a full-time basis. But that said, we have very strong numbers, particularly at our secondary, which is at our high school, which is somewhat unusual. But, I think Matt's got a number that's written in his mind about where we'll land with the high school, and he very likely will be right. When we come back to the January board meeting, that will be a time in which we will do the revised budget. And we will take a look at our enrollment numbers because, as you learned earlier, that drives our finances. And so we will look at if there's any shifting, but likely the bottom line will be very similar to what you currently had in the adopted budget.
All right, thank you. Next is a first reading of several policies, starting with Ms. Oftedal.
Tonight, I'm bringing for your consideration Policy 533, the Student Wellness Policy. This policy is reviewed each year by the Student Wellness Committee, and this year they have made the suggestion that we expand the scope of the policy to include social, emotional learning and support, as well as nutrition and physical education. Thank you.
Then Jael, I believe you've got 3 policies for us this evening.
Good evening. The first one is Policy 903, and this is visitors to schools and school-sponsored events. Our Director of Finance and Technology Manager did a good job of walking us through some of the upgrades that they have done in the summer that kind of touched on some security measures, and this really aligns well with that. This is a policy that was last updated in 2002, so it's been a while. We have some new things that we are doing in our buildings that we really want the community to be more familiar with, our parents and our volunteers in our building and other folks who are not staff members. So the changes in here are minimal. but they really speak to the procedures that we are requiring all our guests as they enter our buildings. We want to make sure that this is systemic and it's uniform from one building to another, to make sure that in compliance with the new features that we have in our buildings, that all people are coming in and they are registering and signing in at the main offices so that we are aware who our visitors are, and should anyone walk through our buildings and see an unfamiliar face, that they have the right identification and that everyone in that building has permission to be in that building and the manner of their visit is approved and someone is aware of that as well. So the safety of our students and our staff is our priority. We also want to make sure that our visitors also have a sense of safety when they come into our buildings. So this just cleans up the language and adds a little bit of those safety measures in accordance to some of those upgrades that we have done to enhance securities in our buildings. The following one is Policy 904, which is the distribution of materials on school district property by people who are not staff members and are not students. Periodically, we do get requests from community members and organizations to share information with our families through our students. We want to make sure that the information that we are sharing with our families, simply because by the fact that we are sending it may have some implication of endorsement, is in compliance with our policies and with our procedures. So the updates that we have done is just to clarify a little bit of that for people who may be requesting it, so that they are aware of where they should send those requests and the procedure for whether that's going to be approved or not. And it really sets the language that is consistent with our practices and our policies for non-discrimination and for content that is appropriate, enhances the education of our students. So that is submitted for first reading as well, and also clearly articulates who the administrator is. This request should go through the Office of Communications and Community Relations, and this is across the district. And the last one is advertising. So the three policies that I've just read are in our 900 series for community relations, and advertising as well. This relates to advertising to students in publications and printed materials, on sites, school district sites, as well as sponsored events for some of the functions that our students or faculty or even district may hold for our community. So the language has been cleaned up a little bit just to give a little bit more clarity as to where those requests should be funneled. One of the things is we want to be very careful in protecting the names and the images of our students, as well as protecting the image of our district. And we want to be able to review that information very carefully to, as again, like with everything we do, to make sure that is in compliance with our practices and our policies. We want to be fair to everyone, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we are gatekeepers of, the treasure, which is our students, and the image of our school, which is very important. And we want to make sure that all approved advertising is in compliance with the guidelines that the school board has set forth. So these three are submitted to you for first reading.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have reports from school board members, beginning with the Northwest Suburban Integration School District meeting that was held on November 16th. Main things that we discussed at the meeting, we did a reflective on, unfortunately, the failed magnet school grant that we were not able to receive in the last period. Talked a whole lot of what the strengths and weaknesses of our grant application was. They only chose 9 out of a total of 52 applications that were submitted to them. So we were able to take we were actually able to see some of those that were both accepted. So we can kind of see what they included in some of theirs that we may or may not have included in ours. So we do believe that we'll be able to put together an even stronger grant application. In the past, we have actually received the magnet school of grants when we did our original IB entry into it with the middle years program. So we'll be going through that again in this upcoming year. So they'll be coming back out for more additional or hopefully they'll be coming out for more. I believe that they were talking about, they were supposed to come out with it, but there was always questions with the legislature talking about at the national level of cutting out this program as they do every year, though they always seem to put it in the funding bills. So the other main thing going on at Northwest right now is the lottery magnet program. Right now, families from around the 7, 8 districts that are part of the Northwest group are now putting in their lottery applications for their students when they want to go to a specific magnet school. So we have a total of, as of Armistice Day, November 11th, we had about 5,300 applications. We were about 5,500 last year total. So we're just a little behind that number. I would suspect that we're probably going to be right at that number, maybe even slightly higher this year. For our district, we have, looks like about 570 students, looks like, overall coming to us from different locations within the consortium. So that always continues to be strong for us. The next up, the Association of Metropolitan School Districts Board meeting held December 2nd. Mary Kay.
Yes, we had a speaker from, we had an early learning update from Bobby Burnham, the Director of Early Learning Services at the Minnesota Department of Education. And she talked with us about the voluntary pre-K program in Minnesota, of which Fridley was fortunate to be a grant applicant for those dollars. There was great demand for the pre-K. They had, they provided funding and were not able to provide funding to 6,700 children across 35 districts across the state of Minnesota. So they were pleased to see the demand, that people are really interested in this, but unfortunately there was not enough money to fund all of those who were interested. So they will be accepting applications again in January, so they're ready for the biennial or the funding year to start up again in July. So people are encouraged to get in on that again. Of those that were funded, 10% that received the voluntary pre-K funding were from Minneapolis, St. Paul districts. 40% were from metropolitan suburban school districts, and 43 from non-metro school districts, and then 7% of the funding went to charter schools. So that just gives you some idea of how that was dispersed. And then AMSD also has come up with their 2017 legislative platform. It covers some, the platform, I won't go into detail about it, but some broad areas are adequate and equitable and stable funding for districts to increase taxpayer equity across the state around school funding, and enhance educational equity, and to enhance local control, to encourage innovation in districts. So those are the overarching areas of the platform. I also represent Minnesota School Board Association, which we don't have on here. They don't meet regularly, but they have a legislative delegates, and we just had our delegate convention and reviewed about 24 resolutions, and 16 of those were passed for the Minnesota School Board Association to move forward and to kind of focus their work for the session. And so those have not been released yet, but those decisions, that's in the process. So narrowing down how they're going to focus their work.
Right, thank you very much. Next up, the Schools for Equity in Education meeting held December 2nd, 2016.
I also just want to piggyback a little bit with Mary Kay talking about voluntary pre-care and reminding everyone that we were a recipient of that grant. We have 80 students that were able to partake of that, and that's ADM. So there are actually more than 80 children. It's if 80 children went to school every day. But we are also able to expand that with the use of some other funding, and so we've got another section that we will be adding in January. We had a waiting list of about 30 students, and we have 20 of them that will join us in the 5th section of voluntary pre-K. And then Bobby Burnham, that day, I cornered her after that and said, is there a possibility of moving those pre-K students over to FCC. So that would enable kids, parents to be able to perhaps have younger children drop there as well as childcare. And she said, put it in writing. Unbelievably, she called or said last week that we can do that. So we're in the process now of thinking about how to serve kids and parents better in our early childhood services as well as our child care. And so that's kind of on the docket for planning for fall. For Schools for Equity, that was also a very nice time because a gentleman from the University of Minnesota, Dr. Clayton Cook, was there, and he talked to us throughout the state, or members of the C throughout the state, about the work that he does on social emotional learning. And again, we were very anxious to hear him because this is the gentleman that we've been working with since last May, and feeling like this is the exact thing to do to be able to look at students as a whole. And he did a nice job of laying the groundwork for the work that he is doing with us here in Fridley, which we're very pleased because everybody was looking around saying, how do we get him to come here? So we're very glad to have that partnership, and Laura Seifert-Hertling was very much involved in making that happen, as well as Patrick Varro, who was himself a psychology student in grad school there at the university. So that helped us a lot. It's who you know as well.
Exactly.
All right, thank you. Moving on to important future school board dates. The next AMSD board meeting will be held January 6, 2017, 7 to 9 a.m. at the Tice Conference Center. The next Northeast Metro 916 board meeting will be held January 11, 2017 at 6 p.m. at the Bel Air School. Our next Fridley Public School Board meeting, January 17th, work session 5:30 in the City Hall Conference Room A, open forum 7 p.m. at City Hall Conference Room A, and our business meeting here in the council chambers at 7:30. With that, do I have anyone have anything else to add for this evening? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion by Proeto, seconded by Lindblad to adjourn the meeting at 8:41. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned.